Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. Look, if you've ever found yourself having the exact same completely exhausting argument with your partner over and over again, and you're just left feeling totally misunderstood, well, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're going to demystify the biology and really the childhood origins behind those incredibly painful recurring relationship loops. We're decoding what therapists call the anxious avoidant trap. So, here is our roadmap for today. First, what is attachment theory? Second, inside anxious attachment. Third, inside avoidant attachment. Fourth, the anxious avoidant trap. And finally, number 5, why the pattern persists. Section 1. What is attachment theory? The biology and childhood origins of how we love. We're actually starting way back in the 1950s with psychologists John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth. They discovered that our early childhood experiences with our caregivers heavily shape our adult relationships. Now, if you feel like you're stuck in a toxic relationship loop, please know it really isn't just you. A staggering 50% of adults experience insecure attachment patterns. That's literally 1 in 2 people. Half the population falls into anxious, avoidant, or disorganized styles, while the other half falls into the secure category. So if you are struggling with this, statistically speaking, you are in very good company. And this all boils down to what the American Psychological Association calls an internal working model. It's basically this early cognitive framework that dictates how we seek closeness, how we handle conflict, and how we respond to emotional needs for our entire lives. Think of it like a giant invisible blueprint that you build in childhood, which then manages every single romantic and professional connection you make going forward. Right, so coming from that blueprint, we have 4 main attachment styles. Secure, which is a healthy balance of intimacy and independence. Anxious, which really craves closeness. Avoidant, which highly values independence. And disorganized, which is a mix of contradictory behaviors. Now, while there are 4 primary styles, our focus today is strictly on how the anxious and avoidant styles dangerously interact with one another. Moving on to Section 2. Inside anxious attachment, the hyperactive alarm system. This style typically pops up when a child experiences inconsistent or unpredictable care. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, that inconsistency creates this hyperactive attachment system that stays with you into adulthood. In the real world, this looks like constantly seeking reassurance, intensely fearing abandonment, or, texting excessively when you're apart. People with this style often overthink interactions and can easily interpret perfectly neutral situations as total rejection. They are constantly scanning for relationship threats. Just listen to the inner monologue for a second. Did I say something wrong? Are they losing interest? What if they leave me? Voicing these thoughts out loud really shows us that this isn't just someone being overly dramatic. Actually, it's a genuine neurobiological response to the absolute terror that love is slipping away. Their nervous system is literally sounding a fire alarm. Okay, Section 3. Inside avoidant attachment, the self-protective shield. So we contrast that anxious style with the avoidant attachment style. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration notes that this develops when early caregivers were emotionally unavailable or dismissive. That emotional neglect essentially forces a child to develop extreme self-reliance just to survive. Because of this defensive shield, in adulthood, they highly value independence, they feel super uncomfortable with deep intimacy, and they often just completely withdraw during conflicts. They prefer logical analysis and can genuinely feel suffocated by too much closeness. And their inner monologue? It sounds a bit like this. They're too emotional. I need space to think. Why can't they just handle this themselves? Hearing that, we start to realize they really aren't trying to be cold. Their nervous system just interprets deep emotional vulnerability as a massive, dangerous threat to their autonomy. For them, space equals safety. Which brings us to Section 4, the anxious avoidant trap, the pursue-withdraw cycle. This is really the climax of our explainer. Look at what happens when these 2 opposing survival strategies are forced to share a life together. You've got anxious communication, which is all about lengthy texts, frequent check-ins, and a desperate need for immediate responses, versus avoidant communication, which leans on brief responses, deflecting emotional topics, and a huge need for alone time. It is so obvious how an anxious partner's genuine attempt to build intimacy perfectly, and I mean perfectly, triggers the avoidant partner's urge to build walls. And that right there kicks off a relentless 5-step pursuit-withdraw cycle. First, activation. Second, pursuit. Third, withdrawal. Fourth, escalation. And fifth, crisis or temporary resolution. Basically, the anxious partner's desperate pursuit of connection causes the avoidant partner to defensively withdraw. And that withdrawal, it just escalates the anxious partner's panic even more until a full-blown relationship crisis hits. Section 5. Why the pattern persists. Mutual confirmation of core fears. So why does this devastating cycle trap well-meaning couples for literally years without them even realizing it? Well, it's because it mutually confirms their deepest core fears. Every single time the avoidant partner pulls away, it confirms the anxious partner's absolute worst fear, that people always leave. And conversely, every time the anxious partner chases, it completely confirms the avoidant partner's fear that closeness is suffocating. It feeds on itself. But here is the absolute most important takeaway today. These are not character flaws. They're adaptive strategies. Both partners are actually responding completely rationally to perceived threats based on their internal working models. The true antagonist in your relationship isn't you, and honestly, it's not your partner either. It's the cycle itself. It's just two childhood survival mechanisms crashing into each other over and over again. So I want to leave you with a question to really think about. Which attachment pattern is secretly driving your relationship loops? And how will recognizing this trap help you finally break the cycle? Just recognizing that your relationship friction is rooted in biology and early adaptation is the absolute first step toward finding lasting, secure love. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer today.